Welcome, guys. Let's go through an example and see if we can find what is missing to prove that these triangles are indeed congruent. So it says that segment CD is parallel to segment AB as shown in the diagram. And it says to determine one additional condition that would be sufficient to guarantee that these triangles would be congruent to each other. Now let's remember a lesson we learned a long while back, and it is that if we have two parallel lines, and they said this line is parallel to this line, if we have two parallel lines cut by another line, and we call this line a transversal, it forms special angles, and you can find this in formula charts perhaps, to help you remember what these are. But remember, those were corresponding angles. We had alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, etc. And in this case, we've got this angle and this angle. Those would be alternate interior angles. And remember, those were congruent. So we've already figured out, hey, we know for sure that we have two angles that are equal. We can also write a transversal in the other direction. This would also be a transversal, which would therefore create these other angles that would also be congruent. And so we have found two sets of angles that are congruent based on this picture. So if we erase the lines that I drew, now we can see that I have found that those two angles are congruent. We can also notice, thinking back about the relationship of different angles we've talked about in the past, these angles here in the center, remember, if they make an X, like so, the angles right across from it, like those two right there, would be equal. And so therefore, this angle, these angles here in the center, would be equal to each other as well. So those would be called vertical angles. And so we've used alternate interior angles to help us find those other angles at the top and bottom. And then here at the center, we have used the vertical angles and realized that those are also equal to each other. But remember, there are four ways we can tell if triangles are congruent. By angle, side, angle, side, angle, side, and let's see what else, side. These are the four different criteria. But so far, we haven't found any, we've only found angles, and there is no AAA on this list. So therefore, we still can't prove these triangles congruent. So what is missing? What is something that we need to have in this picture? According to this list, we need to have three things. We need to have either three sides that are the same, or two sides that are the same in one angle, or two angles in one side. So I'm going to say that we are missing, you're right, we're missing a side. We need to see that at least they didn't give us that tick mark that we need to see to be able to say, hey, these two sides are congruent. So it's missing sides. Sides have to be congruent. So I'm going to write, we're missing congruent sides. So remember, three things are needed to prove triangles congruent. Either three sides, two sides in one angle, or two angles and one side.